the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2. I call this pandemic 1. We'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
So Bill Gates seems quite excited about the next pandemic. I know he's a health expert, this guy, but why is he calling this pandemic 1 and the next one pandemic 2? There's been more than one pandemic in history. Has he not heard of the Spanish flu epidemic 100 years ago? There was a pandemic 14 years ago with swine flu. Does he not remember that? Or because he wasn't involved, does that not really count? There you go. WHO declares H1N1 official flu pandemic.
And these expert assessments of the evidence, the scientific criteria for an influenza pandemic have been met.
That's a pandemic, Bill.
Decided to raise the level of influenza pandemic alert from phase 5 to phase 6. The world is now at the start of the 2009 influenza pandemic.
Right, so there's been more than one, and we've got experts already working on vaccines and contingency plans for the next pandemic. They're calling it Disease X. Disease X. We're all very concerned about Disease X. UK scientists have begun developing vaccines as insurance against a new pandemic caused by an unknown disease.
This is Porton Down in Wiltshire. It's part of the UK Health Security Agency and it's very rare to be allowed through the high fences, the gates, into the labs themselves. But they're very keen to show off their new vaccine development and evaluation centre. It started work during the COVID pandemic, but they're now extending that work to look out for what might be the next pandemic. They don't know what it will be. A virus or a bacteria or some other pathogen, so it's just called Disease X.
So they're already working on vaccines and ways to prepare for the next pandemic. But I think it is important to remember that there have been more than 2 pandemics, swine flu being one of them. Although, here's a clip from Al Jazeera declaring that pandemic in 2009 to be a fake one, that they faked it, that they exaggerated it. I wonder why.
Deadly influenza pandemic or nothing worse than a mild case of the flu. Here in Thailand, their swine flu vaccination program has just begun, but in other parts of the world, serious questions are being raised about the handling of the pandemic. Health officials around the world had believed swine flu could kill hundreds of thousands, if not millions. They introduced emergency measures and spent in excess of $20 billion on vaccines. But now Wolfgang Wodardt, head of health at the Council of Europe, says they got it wrong. Not only that, they were misled by the World Health Organization and unduly influenced by drug companies.
Right, so in 2009, the World Health Organization misled countries and millions were spent, as you heard, when a pandemic that was not was exaggerated. Maybe that's why Bill Gates doesn't include this in the list of pandemics. And he only considers the recent one and the next one to be the real pandemics because, for example, this one was exaggerated by the World Health Organization and a lot of people profited from that exaggeration.
Sought to justify their decision.
Never before the search for traces of the virus was carried out so broadly and intensively. Besides, many cases of death that happened to coincide with seropositive H1N1 lab findings were simply attributed to swine flu.
This is all back in 2009. I'm sure you remember it well. So it's great that we are preparing for Disease X and all the scientists are busy beavering away. But I just hope nobody exaggerates a pandemic that is not actually a pandemic for profit, as was the case, according to Al Jazeera, in 2009. Here's Channel 4 News reporting the same story, just in case you don't trust Al Jazeera, because they're a bit foreign.
With European countries now burdened with bills for millions of unwanted doses of the swine flu vaccine, he wants an investigation. Our science correspondent Tom Clark has this report.
As I say, this was in 2009. I hope nothing like this ever happens again. And I hope Bill Gates can help us and save us.
The world is now at the start of the 2009 influenza pandemic.